welcome one and all. Thank you for taking this time. As Claire quite rightly says, there's one thing I do know about everybody that's present at the moment, and that's that you're not into football. Because if you don't know already, the World Cup semi-final is on, and England is actually in it. It's a miracle. But anyway, we've got there. So if you happen to be interested in the football and you are surreptitiously got it on some other screen, then please do feel free to just put the score on in the chat as we go through. So we're very, very happy to have an update. I have to say that I live about 100 meters from a pub that's got a large screen and will have at least 300 people there. So I can assure you that when England scores, I will know all about it because there will be this massive cheer that's going to come from the pub down the way. So I'll be able to let you all know. But if that's your thing, then please feel free to multitask, as we know you can. So the format for this evening is just for have a TQA. This is type Q&A, and we will be chatting and showing you some slides that Josh has prepared up until 9 p.m. There is a recording going on, and the recording will stop at 9. And then after that, we have a sort of after party for anyone who's interested and wants to keep on talking and wants to share some ideas with Josh. Then we're not going anywhere, are we, Josh? We can just hang around.
Yeah, we'll just be here. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just hang out and see if there's anything that you want to cover. We will send the recordings to you within certainly within 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. There will be slides, and there will also be some handouts that we might be talking about later on, or we'll certainly be explaining when we send the recordings to you. One of the things that I would like to share with you, for those of you who aren't familiar with BAPT, if you can go to the previous slide, Josh, is that we are a not-for-profit organization. We are volunteer-led, and our values are extremely important to us. We have an ethical voice in type, and we like to promote our values in all of our presentations. So we hope that these values of being ethical, sustainable, accessible, and inclusive are important to you, because they're certainly important to us in all of the events that we share with you. So as far as participation goes, we just value to be comfortable and do whatever it is that suits you. If you want to have your video on, or if you want to have your video off, either is fine. Please just make yourself as comfortable as you need to be. There are some board members also who are on the call. So those of us who have the background that you can see that is similar to mine, we are all on the board or associated with the board. So if you've got any questions you want to ask us, please direct message. Wherever we can. So and you're learning of type. So back to Josh. A really warm welcome to Josh. We're so thrilled that you are here. We have a lot to go through, and I'm sure it's going to be an entertaining or a valuable evening for everybody. I've been genuinely looking forward to this, actually, because Josh has been quietly reaching hundreds of thousands of people online, many of whom will tell you it has seriously changed something for them. So Josh's frameworks are the Mo model and the Spice chart. And I think what's making it a different experience is that this is a practical and honest view born out of a real experience that Josh has had, not just something out of a textbook. This is something that we know that works. And I think this is why it's resonating with people. So what makes tonight particularly interesting for us as a type community is the question Josh has sort of started exploring, which is how do our type preferences shape the way we experience ADHD and the way we cope with it? Because not everyone with ADHD struggles in the same way, and not everyone with the same strategies finds the same relief. And we suspect that type is a part of why. So it's an important combination when we're looking at neurodiversity. And I should say from the outset that this is Josh's story, and it will be told in Josh's way. And my job is simply to create a space for him to tell that story. But I am an ESTJ, which means I will probably want to organize everything into neat tables and lists. And Josh will probably be the first one to tell me that's not quite how it works. So we'll see how we go. I should also say that this topic is personally meaningful to me because my son has navigated ADHD through his life, and I've watched that journey over many years and have a deep respect for how hard it can be, and how transformative the right frameworks can be when you actually find one that works. So, Josh, I'm so glad that you said yes to joining us tonight, and we're really looking forward to it. But I'm going to start with you telling your story. So, going maybe it's from the beginning if you wish to, but Josh, what is your story? And to use a football term, how did this all kick off?
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks for that introduction. Yeah, so why did I start this project? I started it because I didn't want other people to have to suffer like I did and to miss out on various opportunities due to not being able to help themselves and look after themselves through executive dysfunction. Um, and yeah, I got inspired to start the project whilst I was doing a course with Personality Hacker. And as part of it, we did a workshop where they talked about this theme, your mess is your message. And they were saying how if people spoke more openly about the things that they'd struggled with, that could be enormously helpful to somebody else who was going through the same thing. And as part of the workshop, they got everybody to emotionally reconnect with the worst period of their struggle. And for me, that when I was when I was about 19. It was after my first year of uni, and I'd kind of burned out because I like wasn't able to look after myself properly and was understimulated, malnourished, although I didn't realize it at the time. And when I reconnected with that, I remembered like, oh my God, I'd completely forgotten how awful that was. Like that was ages ago. I've come so far since then. And then I suddenly felt a sense of responsibility to try and make all the stuff that I'd learned like accessible or available in some way to a previous version of myself, so that they could, um, accelerate out of in like it just like a week or a couple of days what had taken me like 10 years to learn or so.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, during the workshop, Antonia gave me the name the ADHD Survival Kit. And then over the next month, it was like I'd wake up and like five thoughts would come straight at me, where it's like, I'll remember to say this, 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 this. And my job was to just kind of like jot them down and make sure that they were stored somewhere. Um, and it was really weird. It was like I wasn't allowed more than five a day. Sometimes I get the five and I'd be like, okay, I'm enjoying working on this project. What else? And then I just couldn't remember until like it was the next day. Um, then yeah, it became the book. Um, and then I'll kind of like I'll talk a bit where it went from there. But uh, yeah, today like we've just got like a really rare opportunity for me to kind of talk about how type plays into the background of all that because nobody on ADHD talk knows what a transcendent function is or like cognitive functions or anything. But I really view this project as being born from the transcendent function between Fi and Te, and perhaps also Si and Ne as well. Um, but yeah, I think the strategies could help really anybody adult better, whether they're neurodivergent or not. And just like anyone at risk of overwhelm, I kind of view it as like how if you create like disability ramps for people with wheelchairs, that ends up actually benefiting everybody because you've made the thing easier for like everyone. And then, if you've got a day where you've sprained your ankle, suddenly like the wheel ramp is actually really useful. Um, so it's stuff like that really. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Thanks, Josh. I love the way you sort of call it adulting. It's
Yes.
like transitioning into this adult world that actually was was seemingly easy for other people, but was just very difficult for you?
Hmm. Um, yeah, adulting is what has really like kind of made it all click together. Like a lot of I ended up thinking about it as maintenance, but adulting seems to it lands with a wider
Mm,
audience.
yeah, it's a
Um,
nice word.
hmm. So yeah, how has the project gone so far? Is that the next slide on that one? Yeah, okay. So after I wrote the book, I started the TikTok channel. It like grew pretty quickly. It got like 15,000 followers in the first month. The Mo model went viral. The spice charts went really viral, which was kind of like a bit of art and science. And
So that was 15,000.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Um,
many of us would die for a social media following like that. Well done.
Oh, well, it definitely, I think it helped that it was like a teaching content type thing. I've
Hmm.
certainly never got that much eyeballs for anything when I've done like animation. Um, but yeah, I think people really do like using TikTok to learn about stuff. Okay, here we go. Um, oh, I think I was actually, yeah, I was planning to talk about in family context. Um, so yeah, so one of the reoccurring themes in some of my stories is saying like, oh, I don't think my parents were that equipped to teach me properly, which is a classic Enneagram 4 thing to say. So which gives me a bit of comfort to like rib them. And yeah, it's everyone's first go at life. And I think it's worth noting that my younger sister didn't turn out with any of the same problems that I did. So I think, yeah, type plays into that. Um, in that I think, I maybe wasn't that teachable as well. So just looking at the family dynamic, you can see that we're all feelers. Um, Extroverted thinking is pretty low in the
You can't
household.
actually see the slides at the moment, Josh.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Okay.
I can.
Oh, you
Okay.
can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I can as well now. Sorry, that was my fault.
Oh, no worries. Okay, so we're all feelers. Extroverted thinking is pretty low. Um, Extroverted sensing is also pretty low, with the exception of my sister. And both of my parents have behind the scenes supporter interaction styles, which means that generally they're okay with kind of stepping in to support because that's like how they show care and consideration. But I think that kind of a bit sabotaged me in terms of learning the skills for myself um, because they would interrupt at different points to try to help me get the best result. But that would interrupt the learning process of like having gone through it all for myself. Um, and like my dad being INFP, gonna struggle to break things down into manageable steps anyway. And like I'm not gonna enjoy that process, he's not gonna enjoy that process. So I think there was like an attempt and then like a struggle, and then he kind of gave up where he was like, well, I've shown you the things now. If you're choosing not to do them, then that's on you. Whereas my mom, who's ISFJ, I think really enjoys like the little detailed steps, which I find infuriating. So there would be lots of points where she'd be trying to teach me something, and it's like, wait, 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 no, 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 stop, stop. You have to use this slightly marginally bigger pan, like to have space for the pasta or something, and it's just too much for me. Um, so yeah, I think any type can have ADHD, and the way that they're going to connect to thinking about their ADHD is going to be quite different depending on their functions. And I also think the ways that people can accelerate out of their um, ADHD issues could be a bit type specific. For me, knowing that I was bad at introverted sensing and extroverted thinking was really helpful um, because I knew that, um, yeah, I just didn't enjoy remembering all of the things which I needed to do. Like I didn't like them cluttering up my mental space. And so I'd go through really long periods of forgetting what foods or meals I even liked to eat. And then I'd have this one novel experience and be like, oh, this is so much better than what I've been eating for the last couple of months. I'm going to eat this now. And then I'd eat that for like a couple of months and completely forget whatever the meals were in the previous time. So I pretty consistently had like a small range of meals that I would eat, which I think factors into um, dysregulation, which is I'm going to bring come to another slide now for food for thought. Um, so Personality Hacker have been promoting this idea a bit recently about these four channels of regulation. They use the terms somatic, emotional, existential, and cognitive. If I was to put it in my own words, I'd say it was physical, emotional, spiritual, and logistical. And I think basically, as an INFP, I was much more attracted to thinking about emotional and spiritual problems, which loosely connects to feeling and intuition. So for me, I tried to solve being disorganized so many times by using introverted feeling and thinking it was an identity issue. I used to think that people were organized because that was something that they felt like doing. And I would put a lot of effort into trying to summon up the feelings of motivation, um, not really realizing that that's not quite the tool for the job. Other people had tools that would help them do extroverted thinking or strategies like mental models or even like training in project management. Um, and another way I used to try to solve it was to use extroverted intuition, where I would essentially try to play games with myself to get myself to do regular things. So I would imagine that a bomb was going to go off if I didn't manage to tidy the dishes away in time. And like suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, this is so much more fun. This is way easier. And then after like 2 weeks or a week, it just doesn't work anymore. I'm like, just let the bomb go off. I don't mind at this point. Um, until eventually I discover something else. So I was talking to Sue about it and I was saying it's like the 100 novel solutions that never work again. And I think this is something people with ADHD know about, where they're like, oh, can we like put like a shared document together so we can exchange like the games like be between each other? Um, the only one which I've ever ended up finding that really has worked for me consistently long term was based off thinking about this TV show called Sense8 on Netflix, where it's a sci-fi where there's 8 people who are psychically connected from around the world. And as they become more connected to each other, they have the ability to kind of channel each other's abilities and gifts in different situations. So I was inspired by thinking about that. And something I'll do is, if I'm not feeling a task, is I'll just sort of gently open my palms up and sort of look upward and ask like, oh, does anybody want to volunteer to do X, Y, Z? And I'll just listen out for like a yes, and then I'll try and embody that character. Usually they've got like different international accents. I'll just try and spend some time where like I let them take over the reins, which has been like a fantastic hack for introverted feeling because it's made me realize that when I get stuck in those positions, it's like one feeling is just holding the driver's wheel really tight and like wants to have its expression. But if you just let go of the wheel, say, does anybody else want to take it? You can just shift into another state. Once the thing's done, I make sure to say thank you and I just let them go back up. And I'm like, oh, that was great. Thank you. And then I just enjoy the piece of whatever's on the other side of that. Yeah, so um, I think it's in your type code gives you a bit of a clue. So your two middle letters, for me, NF, as to what types of problems and solutions you're naturally drawn to focusing on and want to solve. Because for me, I just completely ignored like I really didn't know that much about sensing and how to look after my body. And I didn't have like proper mental models until later. But once I started finding actual solutions for those realms of the channels, I was like, oh, I don't have to make up a game every single time and wait until I feel inspired. These just work a lot better.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
It was very creative of you, Josh, to think up those strategies initially, and it's interesting for me as somebody with sensing and thinking so naturally that
Hmm.
it didn't just land in your lap like sensing and thinking landed in mine, but equally it would never have occurred to me to make a dream or make up a story like that and enter into a character and use that to help me perform a task. So it's fascinating.
It's yeah, I can't I can't emphasize how much aversion I like had to thinking about those things just on their own. It would just create like an ugh field where I'd lose energy and not be able to function.
Mm.
Um, okay, let's see. Where am I? Oh, okay, yeah. So I wanted to one thing I wanted to say was when people first go through the process of getting an ADHD diagnosis or self-diagnosis, um, that's a feeling experience where they experience healing from being able to go, oh, so that's what it was the whole time. Like, and then they can reprocess any grief of people calling them lazy or incapable and can like look back on their previous experiences and kind of do a little bit of intuition patterning of spotting where it pops up as well. And that process, I think for most people tends to last around 2 years or so. Um, but during that process, I was still looking for solutions and didn't really like find them. Um, but after the 2 years, I hit a point where it's kind of like, okay, well, like now what? It's still really difficult and inconvenient. And so I think that's where the survival kit is really can swoop in and like be of use to people. Um, because yeah, all of the advice I found online was really focused on emotional regulation. People like giving emotional regulation, um, and also people like to receive it. And yeah, it can be emotionally invalidating to switch to another channel and say that that might be the root cause. Um, Once I went through a phase of if I was having problems, I'd drink water. I was surprised how many things were downstream of being dehydrated, like especially as an INFP. I'm like, oh, I was like trying to figure out like a moral or a value that had been crossed, but really it was just me. I'm just just dehydrated.
Mm.
Um, so um, th three biggest hurdles was how to break out of like hyperfocus hunger spirals, breaking the curse of forgetting, and managing time. So I'm going to talk about the hyperfocus hunger spiral one first, and then I'm going to move on to some other stuff, and I'll come back to these later. A question: have you ever been too tired or hungry to think what to cook? And if that you have, maybe just give me like a little wave or something. Yeah. So that used to happen to me all the time, where I would hyper focus on something for 4 hours, and then suddenly, boom, too hungry to think what to cook. I'd come down, open the fridge, open the cupboard, and there were ingredients in there, but I couldn't process like what I could put together to make a meal. So I'd spend maybe like about 20 minutes just going back and forth, opening up, waiting for something to pop out at me. And that would usually end one of three ways. Like either I would have something quick and sugary and which junk food, which would give me like more knock-on brain fog, or I'd order an expensive takeaway until like I'd run out of money that month, or I would go for a nap and then I'd wake up even hungrier than before, but at least then I would have like the adrenaline to actually be able to go and do something about it. Um, Now, what I do is I've got a poster of meals that I already know how to make with the ingredients visualized on them. So I can just open up the cupboard. I can be like, do I have that? Yes, no. Okay, that rules that meal out. Do I have this? Yes, yes, yes. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I'm having. And now, what used to be a 20-minute or longer decision is like 15 seconds. And that's a complete game changer. And if you get somebody to go through, if I'd gone back in time and gone through that process with trying to make that sheet with me, that would have been the point of like figuring out the alarm bells of like, oh, this guy doesn't know how to cook a lot of meals. And then there would have been like a point of intervention. Whereas it's completely invisible to a lot of people. We just we we give families like the benefits of the doubt, like societally, that we've all been, but we know it's not really a level playing field in like all sorts of different ways. But generally, when I had my crash and burnout and went and told people, oh, I'm depressed, blah, 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 um, nobody asked me what I was eating, like at any point of the process, like no doctor or anything like that. Um, but that would have solved things much faster, I think. Um,
Just on that, Josh, I remember when we were talking about doing this presentation, and you initially started talking about food and cooking, and I kind of thought, oh, we don't really need to go down that rabbit hole because it's not really essential. And then the more I thought about it and thought about my son's difficulties with eating well and feeding himself, the more I thought that his having ADHD was a very significant thing in his not being able to decide or to focus on what it was that he needed. He didn't have a body awareness, and he's an ENTP. He didn't
mhm,
have that either. Um, so it strikes me that it is something that is not well enough supported when it comes to people who are neurodiverse. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that to share, but it became more and more relevant the more I thought about it.
mm. And because it would mean like doing a family intervention at school, and schools don't really have the resources to do that.
Mm,
Um, and also they don't have like the school dinners to like help. Like a lot of schools don't put lots of budget into nutritional
mm.
eating. Um, but it's definitely a thing where like people with ADHD get stuck with loops because they've just not got the right nutrition.
Yeah, and
Um,
certainly I found that James would almost self-medicate on sugar.
mhm.
He just needed that sugar rush, like
Yep.
instantly. He would have sold his soul for sugar. And my other child didn't. She could still be eating her Easter eggs at Christmas. It was really significantly different.
Mm.
Mm.
And in like laboratory settings, if they want to give people a quick boost of willpower, they just give them sugar. Because the brain, it's like quick and easy for the brain to be like, oh, yeah, grab that, and then away I go to the next thing. Um, okay, so I wanted to share this. Wait, did anybody else want to add something to that before I moved on? Okay. So I wanted to share this mental model, which really helped me um, kind of process the whole thing. So it's about like willingness versus capability. And what I found was that when I was trying to explain ADHD to people who didn't have executive dysfunction, a lot of the times they were conflating willingness with capability. And yeah, so this really helped. So basically, if you're willing and capable, then you're going to be empowered. Also, I used internet memes um, for this quadrant, but the longer it's gone on of me showing it, the more I've realized people aren't familiar with internet culture. So like I'll give little descriptions. So I chose this meme because it's uh, basically sort of like this Western ideal of like a man who can like do it. Like he's mature, he's strong, he's also like well groomed, he's empowered basically. But if you're willing but incapable, then you're going to be stuck and frustrated. So, yeah, there's going to be tears, there's going to be clenched teeth, there's going to be a thing of like, oh, why is this so hard? Why am I struggling with this so much? But if you then become unwilling and you give up. Uh, then you've I've used this meme, this famous cartoon, because it's a little bit ambiguous. If you've got this dog who's in the house that's like totally on fire, he's in a lot of danger, and he's just saying, "This is fine." Um, and I think it's ambiguous if you like look into his eyes as to how aware he is of what's going on around. So if he's oblivious, you kind of just want to shake him and be like, you need to get out of there, like right now, your situation is not good. But if they already know that they've tried to do stuff and they're in a state of learned helplessness, the only option they've really got is to kind of Hakuna Matata, like focus on the bright side and just kind of get on with things, really. Um, this next quadrant is probably the most complex. So this is where you're not willing, but you're capable. So I've used two different images for this one. Um, so the one where we've got kind of the guy in the cloak, without explaining too much about the meme, the image I would want to put in your mind is thinking of a wizard who's in an untidy house, who at any point can just wave his hands and all of the mess and clutter will rearrange itself into like perfect order. The only reason why that's not happened is they're just, I'll get round to it. It's fine. It's not an issue. It's not a question of capability. I'm just happy with how it is at the moment. But there's this other version, which is kind of secretly at ease. So I want to draw your attention to this person wearing a mask of looking kind of stuck and frustrated, but underneath, they're smiling. So the, all humans need attention. It's just something we need for our emotional well-being. And if we don't get it, uh, we'll resort to different strategies to try and get attention basically and care from people. Um, but yeah, this represents someone who's like presenting as struggling, but actually they're okay. But they just want somebody else to help them out. Where this gets difficult though is that sympathy has a half-life for people. So if you actually are stuck and frustrated for a long enough period of time, eventually people will start to wonder, hey, maybe this person actually just isn't willing to solve their problem. They've been stuck with this for so long. Maybe it's a willingness issue. It's not okay, but surely it's not a capability issue. Um, and if you're actually authentically a stuck and frustrated person and you get viewed or perceived as being in this category, you're screwed because people are going to withdraw their help from you. They're going to withdraw time. They get what they're going to do is uh, duh, 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 think about. So the going from stuck and frustrated to empowered. A lot of people's instinct is that you just need to like stick it out or like persist as a way of like transitioning over, like either work harder or work smarter. Um, but they're not gonna, they're like, maybe we'll help you. Here we go. So we've got some archetypal stories. So there's just try harder, where it gets um, stuck and frustrated a bit, but eventually you end up empowered. Uh, there's an Eastern proverb, when the student is ready, the master will appear. So you just internally get willing and ready, and then a mentor shows up and rapidly takes you over to being more capable. And then there's the one where it's like it's not really as hard as you think it is, and you try it and you just discover you were actually capable the whole time, but you just needed the will. Um, yeah.
In parenting my son, Josh, he was often accused of either being lazy or not trying, or, he was very intelligent. He was verbally very intelligent, but he just couldn't couldn't do it, couldn't retain it. What you taught him one day, he hadn't retained the next day. I
Hmm.
imagine these are all very familiar things to you.
Yes, yeah. Especially because one of the ways that I think about ADHD is it's like your mind is a radio. and somebody just comes and scrambles it every now and then, so it goes to a different station. So you might
Mm.
have been like on the station where you were receiving the information before, but you just can't access it today. It's too many context switches to get that
Mm.
information back up. Um, and which was part of how I tried to process it with SI was if I could make posters or external things in my environment, I had a way to load up the information that I needed. I think there's a bit more on that later though. Um, so like in reality, my journey was like a little bit more messy. Um, and I guess, it dips into empowered and then dips out again. But for a long time, there was just a sense of like you try harder and harder and harder, and then nothing's working, so you just give up and you go back down again. Um, One thing you can do is try harder, and you get a little bit better, but then actually trying less hard also helps you get better, paradoxically, until eventually you discover a better technique.
Is that because you relax, Josh? Is that, I've just got too stressed over this, so I'll relax and then it
Yeah,
makes it easier?
I
Mm.
think so because it gives your mind a chance to consolidate. If you keep pushing whilst you're already frustrated and you
Mm.
don't have the information that you need, it's kind of like knowing whether you need curiosity or motivation. And because you need motivation usually for things that you already know how to do. If you try to add motivation to stuff that you don't know how to do, you're going to end up thinking like, oh, maybe I just didn't try enough. Like I didn't want it enough.
Mm.
Rather than like going and finding out information that would make it easier.
Yeah.
Um,
It's obvious you still spent a lot of your younger years on feeling incapable on that
mhm,
side. Mm.
100%. Which is why people like kind of tell you just to relax or just like uh because it's like it can be less cognitively expensive for you to be in the this is fine quadrant for other people
Mm.
um than like help figuring out how the hell to get you over to the empowered side.
Mm.
Um
I think
yeah.
also with your personality type, you were probably less likely to act out or play out or anything like that. With other personality types, I think that's the point in time where their behavior goes awry. Um,
Yeah.
you're probably more likely to tune out than act out, but there'll be others who, too far in that incapable mode, they'd be acting out by then, which is, um,
Mm,
another cry for help, really.
mm. Yeah, I resonated more with ADD, which it was just without the hyperactivity. They
Mm.
rolled it into ADHD now because they're like, oh, it's too much
Mm.
effort to say ADHD and ADD. Let's just say people are hyperactive on the inside as well.
Yeah.
And so now it's like lumped into one.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I think I really slipped under the radar because I was daydreaming and not causing a fuss.
Yeah.
Um, so Antonia asked me during the workshop, she was like, when did you decide to get it together? Because that's looking for an archetypical point in the story. And I couldn't think of an answer at the time because I tried with FI so many times. But actually what happened was I had a breakthrough doing a bit of co-pilot development with extroverted intuition, where a TI model emerged out of my experience. So I'm wondering whether to go to the next slide or show the video first. I'll just explain it and then the video might help consolidate it. So I went on a mini side quest to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival to go and see some shows and to develop my taste because I read a Twitter thread and was like, you know what, I really actually don't know what I like that much. I'm going to use this wad of cash that I've got to go and experiment and explore and try different things out. And I was staying with a friend, and about 2 weeks in to the process of being there, I'd only seen three shows, and a show that I was wanting to see for ages just sold out because I just procrastinated buying tickets. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm wasting my time here. Um, there's got to be some way to. I need to go back to my to-do list and figure out what's gone wrong. And so I was looking through it and it was just overwhelming. So then I started to think, okay, there's got to be some way to categorize this. And then three categories emerged, but I think I'll let the video uh, say more on that. Let's just do a sound check. Can everybody hear? Just give me a thumbs up if you can.
No.
No?
Oh, we can't
No?
hear.
No sound?
You need
Okay.
to enable sound in the screen share.
Share settings.
See a toolbar? It's green and red.
Mm-hmm.
And then open up that toolbar. On the right, click on more. And then
Mm-hmm.
a menu should appear. One of the options should say share computer sound.
Ah, okay. Stereo high fidelity.
If you have ADHD, how are you managing your time? I feel like
I'm going to share a mental model that I came up with to explore some of her options going forward. But first up, I'm Josh. I'm the author of the ADHD Survival Kit. I've struggled with executive dysfunction and ADHD for about 10 years, but I've developed some practical systems to help make everyday life easier. So this is the MO model. It stands for Maintenance Organizing Experiences. I came up with it after a show I really wanted to see sold out because I procrastinated and I just didn't have my stuff together. And then I realized, oh my God, the point of being organized is to get to do stuff that you want to do. So I looked back at my to-do list and I was like, there's got to be some way to simplify all of the stuff that I'm writing down here. I realized there's stuff that I have to do, there's stuff that I want to do, and then there's the work that I have to do in order to make the stuff that I want to do actually happen. So maintenance is basically adulting. It's things like chores, groceries, personal hygiene. And once you've got a baseline of energy, you can use that freed up mental bandwidth in order to organize to have experiences or organize to get better at doing chores. Sometimes when people with ADHD say that they can't get organized, they mean that they can't do maintenance very well. And when you can't do maintenance very well, you end up in the fog, the downward spirals. Work is a division of maintenance because you need funds to be able to pay your bills, and also there's some experiences that you need funds for. Now, what can happen with the MO model is you can end up in loops. So, for example, constantly organizing experiences, unsustainable partying until, like you run out of food or clean clothes, and then bam, you kind of crashed back into the fog. There's also the OCD loop, which is where you put all of your free mental energy back into getting better at trying to conserve your energy. And then there's the work loop, where basically all of your free time and energy goes back into your job. Each of these loops has temporary benefits, but they can have hazards if you stay in them for too long. Unsustainable partying allows you to have fun and maybe like ignore your work if you don't like it. The MO loop allows you to kind of, if you don't like the experiences in your life, it allows you to sort of like block out them. The hazards of the work loop are that you potentially burn out or you just miss out on experiences that would enrich your life. Now, when she asks how are people organizing their time, that could mean a bunch of different things in this model. So that could mean how are you doing adulting efficiently? It could mean what decisions are you making around time and like how to spend it? Or it could mean how do I have more fun and variety in my life and get out of this routine? By the way, lots of people are in these loops. I've been in each of these loops before, and we all need different ways to cope, and they all have benefits depending on the time and place. Now, I went and looked at one of her other videos, and this is what she's currently working with in her day. So she's doing 10.5 hours of work. She's got like a half an hour commute either time, and then she's only got 3 hours free time left or to choose whether to study or not. So let's work through what the 4 different ways are to get energy back into her system. So if you're feeling low, you could add good quality experiences, which have a nourishing effect. It almost sort of loops back on itself in that like good quality experiences can be a sort of maintenance, but she's not got a lot of time for that. The second way is to subtract low quality experiences so that she's still not really got a lot of time for that even. The third way is to add better quality maintenance. And the fourth way is to reduce the amount of maintenance. So that's probably the one that I would focus on. In her previous job, she had a lot more free time. What I help people do with the ADHD Survival Kit is to get better at organising maintenance so that they can have more energy to then spend on experiences. Now, I used to really get overwhelmed by everyday tasks and chores, and I would forget something basic and then it would suddenly become a crisis or it would be urgent and my life would fall apart like every 2 weeks. But when I started using the Mo model, I created a poster of all the things I needed to do to maintain my energy. I divided it up between physical and digital, environment, body, and mind. And then I'd use images. So, for example, going grocery shopping, cooking food, doing meal prep, laundry, hoover, fresh air. Because with executive dysfunction, it feels like it's everything everywhere, that it's permeating. But once you put all of the boring stuff onto one poster, then you're not scrambling to think of what it is that you need to do or free associating about chores. It can just be a thing where you sort of maybe like mentally turn off, or at least have a place to arrange that type of thinking so that you don't have to carry it in your head all the time. And then this is how I'll organise my time. I'll write what maintenance tasks do I need to do today, what experiences do I want to have today, and then I'll block them out into different parts of the day. One reason I love using the time blocking sheets is because I find time really difficult to visualise. Anyway, I hope that this was helpful, and if anyone has any questions about the model, feel free to just drop a comment and I will get back to you. There we go. Let me go back to slideshow. And I think that's we've got some time for a breakout room.
What I loved about that Mo model and how you described it was that you actually came to your own rescue, was the way you explained it to me. And that's it's such a shame nobody came to the rescue for you, because in fact it seems so simple to do some of these things, but you know, when you're in that incapable state, then you do actually need some help with those things. And the other thing I remember you saying to me, Josh, is that it was absolutely impossible to use an app, because as soon as you got into the app world, or then anything could happen. You get completely distracted. So having that physical thing in your hand was incredibly important.
Yes, yeah. Like digital organizing processes just didn't really work for me because they
Didn't
just
work.
went back into the ether.
Yeah.
And
Very
yeah,
interesting.
I just wanted to flag I think the thought process of the point of being organized isn't to be organized, it's to get to do the stuff that you want to do. That to me was the FITE transcendent function at play. Because it was like finally putting organization in its place rather than it just being this thing which you had to do so that you didn't get in trouble with an external authority figure. Yeah, so just want to flag that. Yeah, I think we've got time for people to go into breakout rooms and just like
Yes, we
process
have.
a bit. And I'd love to hear back like after like the results of your discussions. Like I'd love to just clone myself and be a fly on the wall in each of them. But yeah, so thinking about either yourself or someone you know who's maybe struggling with ADHD, where might you recognize them spending a bit more time in the Mo model? Where do you or they get stuck? What does that feel like? And maybe do you see any connections with your type or cognitive functions as well?
Right. Away we go.
Hi. Did anybody draw short straws? Did people like vote like you're going to be the speaker? Did it all fall down to the extroverts again?
I was not the
Extroverts,
first
I
person
see.
that spoke. I wasn't the first person to speak in my
Hey.
group.
Has anyone got anything they would like to share about what you were talking about?
Josh, you had said that none of the doctors or anybody asked you about your eating habits, how you were, your diet. Did any of them ask you about your sleep patterns, and how was that affected by your ADHD?
No, they didn't ask about my sleep patterns. So when I went to the doctor, it was about like 10 years ago, and it hadn't exploded in public consciousness in the same way that it has today. So my doctor didn't really know what to do with me. He just said, there's not really any support for adults with ADHD. I'm not really sure what you want me to do. Maybe you could go private. Um, and but it's funny that you mentioned sleep because one of the things I found out recently was that so there's two things. So there's an idea of ADHD as being a circadian rhythm disorder. So it's just that people's rhythms are out of sync with society. And the other is that if you don't get uh, enough sleep or deep rest, essentially you inhibit your brain's ability to repair itself and then to be able to absorb proper nutrition. So, like missing sleep is like doubly bad because even if you had like a perfect diet the next day, but you weren't getting enough sleep, you're impairing your brain's ability to absorb any of those nutrients in the first place. So it needs to be absorbed twice, like both by your gut and then also by your brain. Um, yeah, since finding that out, I've been a bit more. I'm thinking a bit more like, oh yeah, that's really important. But I used to spend so much time staying up late, because to me that was when I was feeling creative and productive. But when I started, at some point, I started measuring my productivity with like different times, and I realized that actually what was happening was I was entering into a slightly hypnotic stupor late at night, and that I wasn't actually achieving that much, but I was at least feeling in flow finally from having a really scattered day. Um, so yeah, I think I'm pro early bedtime now, whereas I was not that way before. I was like, I'm a night owl. I wake up at different times. Society's trying to make me fit to their standards. I'm creative, blah 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 blah. Not realizing like how much it was affecting me. Although I do think when you're sleep deprived and stuff, you make different types of connections. So if you wanted to play around with that for creativity's sake, I think that's also okay.
Any other thoughts from your groups?
We had a thought. I don't know if Mark or Valerie want to um, surface it or I can mention it.
Go ahead, Leanne.
Yeah.
So there was just one thing as we were talking about it, Josh, it was just around I think looking at how ADHD and type overlay. I think there was lots of resonance with the Mo model. And also looking at how you had described it for your functions, and it resonated with the other two people who were in my group because that was also their best fit type, which they've listed out on their screens. The idea that how that would overlay for people who have other best fit types in terms of other dominant or primary functions and less practice functions. So that would be helpful just to see how that would play out. I don't know if you could say anything about it because I think that's where we talked about the model, but it got stuck to look at other individuals other than ourselves around that.
Can you spell it out for me a little bit in terms of what the type? Now I tried to scan across, like, and look across the screen, and I got a bit lost. Can you repeat the
Well,
question,
Sure.
if possible?
Well, Valerie,
both
did
Valerie
you
and I
Yeah.
are INFP,
Oh,
and
okay. Yep.
your top two functions are introverted feeling and extroverted intuition. And then the next two, the third and fourth, is introverted sensing and extroverted thinking, which are real, in my opinion, very executive functioning type functions. Right? And I've often felt like I have such a hard time getting into SITE to be able to actually build or accomplish something. Right? So the execution was always difficult, or
Yes.
still is.
Yep.
Can I just leap in there and say something, Josh? Because I think if, for example, you have somebody with ISTJ preferences with ADHD, which is absolutely possible to do, they tend to use those SINTE functions, but it becomes exhausting for them because they crave stability, but it's an extremely difficult thing to get. So they literally burn out as primary school children because they need to find a way to become stable, to find a way to become competent, and they just overwork. But it also means that they're not diagnosed until much later, especially the girls. So it is very well known and documented that females who have ADHD are far less likely to be diagnosed early. And that's because just some of these traits don't show up, or, hormonally, they are more likely to try to please. We also know that females are more likely to have a feeling preference. So again, you've got that, I've just got to work harder and harder and harder and harder. So when you've got an 11-year-old that is staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning to do their homework, that becomes not normal. And so then you've got to have a think, well, what's causing this? Because, there's something going on. So that's a sort of flag that you can try and unravel and just take that thread and see where it leads you. But without a doubt, people who get stuck in that maintenance organizing could easily have ADHD, but they're very possibly, and that's what we're trying to sort of tease out, just have a different set of personality preferences, because it's just going to appear differently. And the strategies you need are again going to work, but it still doesn't mean that the ADHD doesn't put you in that fog of incompetence, because you sit there looking at other people that seem to be doing so well. And yet, no matter how hard you try, you can't just, climb your way out of it. We were talking in the break, Josh, about how you got out of the fog and how it used to take you days to get out of the fog. And now with these strategies, it takes you hours.
Yeah. Because I think the fog is characterized by being full of little bits and fragments of everything that's above it. So there's little bits of maintenance, there's little bits of organizing, there's experiences which are kind of scattered all over the place. But none of it really makes a dent in your ability to raise your baseline to a point where you can start making clearer thinking decisions. Once I had the model, the big realization for me was realizing that, or the secondary one was that if I did maintenance, I could use that freed up mental energy to get better at doing maintenance, and then that would make the next day easier, and that would make the next day easier, and that I could build the momentum that way. So I think for people who are in the fog, it's really a good point of call is to try to work on the MO loop and intentionally enter it to figure out what you can do. Kind of the same thing with the organizing one. When I had the time blocking sheets, I got to a point where I realized oh wow, I've been sat here for hours trying to organize this thing without actually starting on the day. But it helped build the skill set of putting that stuff together so I could get faster at being able to say, oh, okay, I've got enough here. Now it's ready to action. Yeah, I'm not sure I quite managed to catch properly what the question was or the gist of it was before, but I'm sure we can get back to it at some point.
What I've never understood, Josh, is that certainly as an INFP, it's the overlap between what I understand I'm like as an INFP and what my kids will say to me, oh, you've got ADHD because you don't finish things, which I do know more actually. And I say, well, I'm a P actually, I move on to something different, and I'm an N, and I'm excited by new things. And the minute they turn up, that's where my energy goes. So there's that. And also as an N, I'm not really interested in detail, which does affect memory. I am in a fog most of the time because until something interests me, the background is hazy. And so it's the overlap, Josh, with type, where I'm thinking, no, this is normal. The way I am is how I'm meant to be. And yet I've got people like my kids constantly saying you've got ADHD. So I say, well, most people have. So, that's normal.
Mhm.
Um, that's the thing. I'm a bit of an unbeliever. Put it that way, Josh. I
Uh,
reckon.
yeah, that's fine.
So how would you, as an INFP, don't you see there's a big overlap with all these things?
For sure, because the way that I processed like NE and having like low TE was very similar in terms of like opening up loops, starting 100 different projects, and really enjoying the process of my brain kind of flipping to random scenarios or having like a quick flashback or like montage movie, imagining um, different stuff. And I think that's a bit easier to access, um, like creatively when you're in like a little bit of a funk. I think there is I was thinking about this today in the shower. I think there is not a tension point, but it's like they're different life textures or experiences of life, and the model is kind of a map to figure out where you want to go and how you can get back to those things. Um, I yeah, yeah. I, don't- it's still in the process as well. I'm trying to figure out what to call like a loop or a phase, or whether to think about them as circuits and like closed circuits or open ones. But I think the heart of your question is it's around like, oh, I'm in the fog. That's okay, right? And yeah, I think it's down to the person holding the map. Um, and um, yeah, but because I came up with it and I'm sharing the idea, I think there's a subconscious thing of, well, of what's Josh's opinion about where the best place is to go. But really that doesn't really matter so much as what your opinion is and what you would want to do with it, really. Um, because also I think there's something about I think there's a slight cognitive hazard to the map where if you think you're in a loop or identify with it, you might feel like a little bit of shame, like, oh, I'm in that loop. But there's other people who are in other loops who 100% are jealous of the fact that you've got that one functioning. There's people who are in the OE loop who are like, oh my God, I really wish I could just get it together. And then there's people who are in MO who are thinking things like, oh, I'm so like scared to go out and do like a new thing. So I'm just gonna focus on uh, like getting healthier, etc. And not really knowing like what that's for, but enjoying that process. And then there's people who've got responsibilities in the work loop who wish they could just sort of like blow it all up and just um, go back to like no responsibilities and things like that. So I had another thought in the shower where I was thinking, how do I address that? And um I think the ideal is just to be able to have the circuits and be able to turn it off and on. And that's the top ideal. If you can't if you can't access the circuit or the loop, that's
Mm.
probably the lowest one. The second most valuable is to be able to have it as an open loop in that it provides energy for the next step up. And then below that is like being in a closed circuit where it's difficult to get out of. But really, the ideal is just that you've got the thing functioning, um, or the ability to go into it functionally. Or I don't know. I think I may be undoing a little bit of what I was saying earlier, but as you can see, it's a real-time process. I haven't figured out how to how to talk about this yet. Um,
I think also we were saying earlier, Josh, that if you get stuck on the E, if you get stuck in experiences, then that could actually lead to addictions.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
That's kind of like an EE.
An EE loop, yeah.
And
So
that uh,
Can you
uh,
say something about the four C's?
yeah, sure. Um,
And
so the four C's was a another model which I came across in a video, and I was like, oh my goodness, that fits perfectly with experiences because I had the Mo model, but I wasn't really being able to figure out how to use it to get my different emotional or intellectual needs met. And because there were all these different things that were kind of pulling on each other. I wanted to be creative, but I also wanted to go see people. I also wanted to not see people and read books. And this, I just thought it fit so well, and there were so many things that could loosely fall under the categories that I just absorbed it into the model. And the fog was a concept I got from reading a book called Introspect by this ENTP called Visa Virasamy. And he also had this concept of seizing the jewel of life, which found its way into the visual that I put with the four C's. So from having spoken to people about it before and from my own personal experience, it's too much to try to focus on all four at the same time. Most people can have a good quality of life by just focusing on two. Um, and I, I'm at some point I'm thinking I'm going to write some other books that focus on the four C's, and I was writing down what would be the best one to start in terms of like return on uh, investment, and I had the most reasons for doing cavort and exercise because um, I find it a lot easier to socialize after I've done exercise and I've got an endorphin rush. I later found out that there was a study that um, if you exercise and you go through a stressful event later, your cortisol spike is lower because your body has like a way of functioning. It also means that you're tired enough to be able to sit down and consume media. I went through a period where I just played lots of video games and I created a hole in my cultural knowledge that then when I went to like go and hang out with people, I was just like, what are people talking about? I've no idea what this shows are. I got kind of excluded because I just didn't know what was going on. And um, yeah, once I started exercising, then I could actually be tired enough to actually sit down and watch things. Um, and also, I think, if you go walking, that's also really good for creativity. So Cavort seems to have the best return. Um,
what do you mean by consume?
oh, okay. So
yeah,
consume
Yeah.
is, I would define it as what you're paying attention to, how you're using your free time to navigate your soul through the world. Like what books are you watching? What TV are you watching? And what shows, what music? I think meditation could also fall under consume because it's just about where your attention is going in your free time. And with each of the four C's, there's kind of two different modes. There's active mode and there's passive mode. Passive mode is where we spend most of our time, and it's just downstream of having made an active decision. So you start a TV show.
Excuse you,
Yeah,
the
sure.
four C's model, I'm lost. Where
Oh, sure.
do you have a slide for this four C's model?
Not quite. If you look at the top of the pyramid, you've got this
Oh,
jewel.
oh, okay. I can't, I can't see it well. That's too small. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can I zoom in on my thing or no?
Um,
Okay. Well, let me type it in the chat. So it's so
Josh,
it's
we might also just head through the other slides and then
oh yeah,
keep,
okay.
keep that to the chat at the end.
Okay. I'll
Cool.
just say quickly it was create as in creativity, Consume as in what you're consuming. So I think that could also be physical food as well as cultural consumption. Cavort is a C word for movement. Um, and commune as in just hanging out with people.
I see now. I see where you are. Thank you.
No problem.
And the diamond at the top.
Yep.
There you go.
Thank you.
So three. Oh, I actually kind of covered some of the solutions in the video. I'll just quickly say a little bit about the spice charts. But this is an example of one of the meal posters that I was talking about. And organizing it into fresh produce, fridge chilled, pantry, and frozen was really helpful for going grocery shopping as well. Because I used to go back and forth, like looking for different items until I realized, oh, it actually has sections and I can just do one section and then go to the next. With the maintenance posters, I think it's really important that people choose their own images. The brain can process visuals and like an estimated 66,000 times faster than it can process text. And it means that instead of me giving people a poster, which then just kind of beats them up and says like, oh, remember to do this thing, they've at least chosen what the things are that they think are good for them. And then when they see the poster, you're having an interaction through time between a past higher energy version of yourself and a present lower energy version of yourself. And it's really good for people's esteem because they suddenly get a sense of like, oh, I can do it. I can help myself out. The effort that I put in yesterday pays off today. The effort that I put in today will pay off tomorrow. So these are the spice charts. Very inspired by salt, fat, acid, heat, which is the 4 pillars of good cooking. Basically, you scroll down and you can see the flavor profiles of the different cuisines, and you can choose stuff that it all works together, basically. Yeah, and then somebody it generated a lot of buzz online. People were saying like, do you not just sniff spices and know what tastes good together? Someone was like, no, I'm not Remy the rat.
And this is what got 800,000 people interested in what you were doing, Josh, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. And going viral was a process of kind of art and science in that I originally made another video and that got 30,000 views and a bit more. So I went and looked inside the analytics and I saw that about halfway through, nobody was watching the video anymore. So I was like, okay, I'll just chop off all of that. It's not relevant. And I changed the introductory hook to say you at the beginning. So it's making the audience the main character. So you're essentially acting as the guide to the hero, saying, you know, you can massively improve as a chef by using a spice chart. And it was one of the tips which I think really helped kick it off. And like I'd refresh and it would just jump from like 2,000 videos ahead, like just from refreshing and refreshing. And I was like, oh, that's going to be big. I don't know how big, but it's going somewhere. And then it just all started rolling through.
Right.
Time blocking sheet. And then we've got we're workshopping these. So it's very open to feedback and debate and etc. So we've got the Mo model and thinking about the functions. So with extroverted sensing, we've got it valuing experiences, potentially neglecting maintenance, and then insight for experience without maintenance depletes the instrument that makes experience possible. Sue, do you want to read some of them?
I think we'll give these as handouts, Josh.
Okay.
And if people want to stay on for the after party, we can go through those in a bit more detail. But they were fascinating insights. We actually used AI for some of these. And so we're still debating whether AI had got the hang of it or not, but it was really interesting to see what it came up with. We loaded it with information and then had to sort of tease through what came back out of it. But still really interesting thoughts, even on the extroverted perceiving functions, wanting or hypervaluing experiences, and the introverted sensing, hypervaluing maintenance. I mean, it kind of got the gist of it, we thought. So it was fascinating to look at. And the insights on the right-hand side equally so. So we'll go through those in more detail should you wish to, and we'll certainly send them to you when we send the recordings out.
There we go.
Thank you. This is amazing. Thank you so much, Josh.
Thanks, Marilyn. I really
and I'm not ADHD, but I got tons out of this.
Oh yeah, that's great to hear. Like I do think it's got like a wider audience. And yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It was really interesting.
Yeah, the work continues to relate it to type, but I think there's no doubt at all that neurodiversity, having an insight and combining it with type, is hugely effective, and really, should be available to more people than it is currently. So, Molly, would you like to say something?
Yes. What I noticed, that Josh sort of referred to one of the principles from Gordon Lawrence in education, and I think Valerie did too. The whole business of the connection between interest and motivation. And that I'm pretty sure Gordon put energy in there, and that motivation would follow interest. And I think that's what you reported, Josh, on that weekend away. You were looking to say, okay, what interests me? So it was just interesting to see that come up. And I think Valerie referred to the energy that she got as soon as she's interested in something. There was energy. I mean, thanks.
Yeah, I'm interested in. I'm sure that I'm going to find out along the way different ways that the models have touched on something that people have already thought about before. Today, I was doing a bit of research and I found there's a thing called like a skill will quadrant, which is like basically the same as the willing versus capability. So it was exciting to go through the process of like rediscovering stuff that is out there in the collective.
Thank you, Josh. It's I think everybody deserves to be understood and cared for. And the more effort that we put into just trying to understand each other, whether people are neurotypical or whether they're neurodiverse, we all have our blind spots, but we really all deserve to be looked after. And some people just have more challenges than others. And I think it's fascinating what you came up with out of, a situation of being in the fog quite a lot of the time to really finding a way forward that helped you. So thank you so much for sharing it. You are delightful. You are a lovely INFP. You've managed to put some STJ things in there that obviously thrills me to bits. But it's been really interesting to just listen to your journey and how you managed to get through this. So we will be sending many other things to you, and thank you all for your time. We'll just click through a few of the other slides, Josh, just to get to the end there.
Oh yeah, I was going to do a link, and I was going to say if you do the code yes please, I will email you like a version of the updated spice charts. I think Mark already got a copy, so I will email him. Yep, and that's the end slide.
I love the spice charts, and I think of them as great gifts for newlyweds or kids going off to college.
Yes, yeah.
Becoming a new chef.
Yeah, I think everybody needs them. For those of you who aren't aware, we've got a conference coming up in Oxford. We would absolutely love to see you there. I think many people here are already registered to come, and we're certainly looking forward to seeing you. So please hop online and find out more about it, and come if you possibly can. It would be fantastic to see you. And on the next one, Josh.
Oh.
For those of you who are interested, I don't know if everybody has joined BAP, but I certainly think many of you have. Then we have so much more that we're offering on events through our Typeface magazine and practitioner resources. So please follow that link. We'll just put that in the chat if you want to have more information on joining. And just the next one, Josh.
Okay.
And for your feedback, thank you, Elizabeth, for putting into chat. We would love your feedback on these events. We really aim to improve and do more, and hopefully keep all of ourselves in a sort of continuing education process, so that we can really understand type and work it into our lives and thread it through in as many ways as possible. So thank you all very much for joining us. Please hang around should you wish to. We'll stay on and chat about anything to do with this topic or anything else really, but it was lovely having you. So thank you very much for your time and your company. And is it still 0-0? I think it probably is. I haven't heard anything going. I think
it is.
Nobody scored. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it still is 0-0.
Yeah, great, lovely. Thank you, everybody.